Hey everybody, welcome to the Wise Podcast. My name is Adam McLean. We're going to kick off today's show with a tip from Brian Barry.
One of the problems I find myself constantly running into in ministry is the tyranny of the urgent. I find myself feeling like I got to do this, I got to do that, and everything is like right now. Everything's on top of itself. I find my Greek prof said this. I'm taking this Greek class, and his job one, the first day, he says, listen, if you got like 5 kids, actually he said 12, if you got like 12 kids and 2 wives and you're coaching teams and all this, you're gonna have to quit because you can't succeed in this class. And I'm like, dude, you almost nailed me. I mean, I got 5 children, just 1 wife, but sometimes it feels like more. And then I hope my wife is not gonna watch this. But anyway, there's a bunch of things where it's like, man, I just find there's so much to do. And my Greek prof says, listen, if anything, here's what you cannot possibly do. You cannot get behind. You cannot get behind. And I find in ministry, man, sometimes I feel like I just live my life behind, like everything. I'm chasing after anything and everything to get the job done. And I've come to a couple of conclusions that there's some mandatory things that I've got to do if I'm not going to be ruled by the tyranny of the urgent. If I'm going to have any kind of level of margin in my life and still accomplish my ministry with any level of excellence, for at least for me, one of the things I found is I've got to calendar my life out. And I got a couple of 3 quick things I think that help me to do that, and I think maybe some tips that might be helpful for you if you're finding yourself stuck in the urgent and going, man, yeah, I'm always chasing my own tail. How do you get ahead? How do you get out of that rat race and lay some things out? And so I got 3 quick thoughts. I think one is that yearly, we got to choose to run ahead. You and I got to run ahead of the crowd. The leaders were leading, the students were leading, and we got to look maybe 6 months, a year out. You got to run ahead. And what I mean by this is take like 2 days. And this is like, seems impossible. Seems like the antithesis of what you should do when you are under the gun. And yet it's the very thing that actually frees up, pushes the load away to say, okay, look, no, I can't. And I wall myself off and I go run ahead like 6 months down the road and I go, okay, what are we going to do here? What retreats coming up? What weekend talks are we going to do? What series are we going to teach? What small group studies are we going to use? What curriculum are we going to either create or utilize? All that stuff. And start running ahead and think in terms of, okay, what about 2 days that I carve out in the year? And for me, that's what I do. I get a team of people actually together with this, and I run ahead with them, and we do like 2 days of planning at the church, and we get away and we get aside and we do it. The second thing I notice is that I go monthly, I got to take some time and I got to kind of, if you were to like annually run all ahead, I got to monthly kind of walk to the corner. I got to go ahead just far enough that I get beyond my people. And for me, this means setting aside a half a day or a single day a month where I shut down everything else. I shut down my email. I shut down my access to meetings and all that. And I say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that plan that I set out 6 months, a year down the road, and I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to look at it now in bite-sized chunks. I'm going to say, okay, what's happening a month from now? And I make a to-do list. I write out things. I write out who I'm going to delegate stuff to. What do I absolutely have to do? What are other things I need to ask others to do? And I take a half day or a full day, and I make basically a to-do list for my month. And then the last thing is kind of weekly. Weekly, I got to maintain that. Now, I have come to the conclusion in my life, very truly, that there is no way for me to actually get ahead and maintain ahead by the kind of mass eating or mass exercise. I can't exercise once a month and stay fit. I can't eat once a month and stay healthy. I can't do just about anything in chunks. Like even if I come to a conference and I go, okay, and I do like this info dump, it's gone if I don't maintain it. And so for me, it's like, okay, take some time and run ahead and do 6 months, a year worth of planning and pound it into a couple of weeks. But there, you're not going to get down to the minutia, down to the details. You're just putting down some broad strokes. And that sort of helps me to free up my schedule and not be freaking out about what I'm going to do this December or what am I going to do this summer, because I've already given it some forethought. Then I back up and monthly I look at that thing and I go, okay, what's coming up now? What's really starting to come around the horizon that I really need to pay attention to? Make a list of things. Then, and who can I delegate to? That kind of thing. And then weekly, I've found that truly the hare beats the rabbit every time. That's the same thing. Truly, the tortoise beats the hare every time. That the tortoise, like if I slowly, little by little, bite size by bite size, deal with my things, work away at my to-do list, then I find that the tyranny of the urgent doesn't have to sway me. Something can knock me off a day, it's okay. As long as I've done a little bit at it each part during the week. I can have a major tragedy that means I can't address my to-do list at all. And I can sustain that for a period of time because I've developed margin in my life. And so it seems to me that for you and I, one of the healthiest things we can do in youth ministry is to say, okay, look, I don't want to be ruled by the tyranny of the urgent. Yearly, I got to get away. Monthly, I gotta address this thing, run up ahead, take some time, make a to-do list, make a list of things, write who I'm going to delegate stuff to, and then weekly, I got to maintain that list. And if I do that, then I feel like I don't have to be always wondering what's coming up next and when can I get it done.
Thanks for that, Brian. Next up on the show is a devotional, and it's going to come to us from Mike King.
I have a text today from 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, and Paul is writing, "For we know, brothers, loved by God, that he has chosen you because our gospel came to you not simply with words, but also with power, with the Holy Spirit, and with deep conviction. You know how we lived among you for your sake. You became imitators of us and of the Lord in spite of severe suffering. You welcomed the message with the joy given by the Holy Spirit. And so you became a model to all the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. The Lord's message rang out from you, not only in Macedonia and Achaia. Your faith has become known everywhere. Therefore, we do not need to say anything about it, for they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us." And then Paul says, "They tell how you turned to God from idols, to serve the living and true God, and to wait for the Son from heaven, whom was raised from the dead, Jesus, who rescues us from the coming wrath." I think this verse is extraordinary because Paul is saying that you have so embodied the evangelion, the good news, that everybody, not only in Macedonia and Achaia, have heard this good report, but even beyond that. And I love this word that says that this has gone out, this has resounded. And I was just thinking about this the other day. I have this little chiming bowl that I love to use during prayer times as a call to prayer. And it's just beautiful. You hit it, and the sound just kind of resounds and just goes on, and people are walking around in this foyer now, and they're looking and they're noticing the sound of the resounding bell. And that's the image that Paul is giving, that the gospel is resounding. It's just rippling out, kind of like waves in a lake that go and touch both sides of the shore. And he says, you're doing it by embodying this message. So much so that Paul says, we don't even have to speak words about it. We don't even have to say anything about it. The message is getting through by your embodiment of this great good news. You're really living it. And I think that's a great challenge to us, that if the gospel is just about a proclamation of words, we're missing something. We're missing something. It has to be embodied. You know what happens when people start hearing voices and they look around to see who's there? Where's the body that's actually speaking those voices? Then they don't find them and they say, I'm hearing voices. That usually ends up in a visit to the psychiatrist. There's something dysfunctional about that. So the good news has got to be embodied. Yes, it's a proclamation. Yes, it's words, but it's also best heard when it's embodied by action, by behavior, so that the good news resounds out to all those who are around us.
Thanks for watching the show this week. As always, I want to invite you to connect with me. You could drop me an email at adam@youthspecialties.com, or you can also look me up on facebook.com/youthspecialties, or on Twitter, or any other social network that you use. I really want to encourage you this week. We know that these are tough times for ministry. We know that you guys are struggling, and we want you to know that Youth Specialties cares. So please do connect with us. Drop us an email, hook us up on Facebook, something like that. Let us know how we can serve you best. We want to remind you again, like we do every week, that your ministry matters. We know you don't hear it enough. We know that there's a lot going on, and we want you to know that your ministry matters to the parents in your ministry, to the students in your ministry, but most importantly, your ministry matters to the heart of God. Thanks for what you do. We'll see you next week.